Barnsley, the fractal mathematician, calls the mathematics of the eye. Not only is, just quickly go over, not only is brain structure fractal, Russian doll-like, but also brain process is also completely fractal. So the process of the brain is also completely fractal. I'll tell you why. Neurotransmitters compete to bind onto receptors, and synapses compete on a stretch of dendrite to make links with a neuron. Neurons compete with one another for nerve growth factor. Ones that win the competition survive, and the ones that lose this competition, they die. As we saw earlier, cortical columns compete against one another to represent bars of light, different orientations. And then you know that your perceptions compete for interpretation. Is that a kind of cloud, or is it a kind of Jesus in the sky? And you know that things compete for your attention. And you know that moods compete. Is a glass half full, is it half empty? And you know that when you make a decision, that's like a competition, isn't it? But surely that's completely fractal. And also, on a stretch of neuron, synapses link up on a stretch of dendrite. They link up, and then dendrites link up in a cell body, and then neurons link up through synapses, and then columns link up, and then patches of cortex link up in a hierarchy. But then you chain your thoughts together into succession of thoughts and stuff, and thoughts link up. So completely fractal. So the process of the brain, fractal, but the structure of the brain, fractal. And another other thing we do, obviously, on a kind of whole human level, we sense things and we do things. So this pattern we showed earlier of projecting in, projecting out, in a sense, is fractal doing and fractal sensing. So fractal sensing, fractal doing, fractal competing, fractal linking up. Not only is the structure of the brain fractal, but also the process of the brain is completely fractal as well. Now we're going to take this theory much, much further. It goes. These are preliminaries. You won't believe how deep this theory goes. Seriously, I mean, this is basically the base of the mountain, and we're going to go much, 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 much higher. You don't believe how far this theory goes. Just to reinforce the point, I'll show an animation now. Now that is that's called a diffusion limited aggregate. You can see it's actually a computer program. Now, can you see these little kind of specks? Okay, these are like little dots. They're moving, they're jiggling around, random Brownian motion, jiggling about. Okay. Now these used to be called slow grows. What's happening is that you have a central point, starts from the center, and it kind of zooms out. Okay. Well, what's happening is these points are jiggling about, and when the point hits this kind of branching tree, it kind of sticks to it. Now, after it's stuck to it, it itself becomes sticky. So then when another point goes to it, it sticks to it as well. Now this is called diffusion limited aggregate. It used to be called a slow grow because you ran a computer overnight, and basically you might get half that fractal. Okay, but now you run it for a few seconds, and basically computers about 10,000 times faster than they were in the 70s when these was discovered. Now what this is, diffusion limited aggregates are used in complexity theory to model things like snowflake growth and town growth. So a snowflake always grows from an impurity. If you don't have that impurity, then the snowflakes don't form. And also, when you freeze water, it starts from an impurity. You have this thing called supercooled water. If there's no impurities, you can have it minus 100 degrees and the water doesn't freeze. It's supercooled. So snowflake formation and also freezing starts from an impurity, and it starts from that impurity, it grows outwards, the freezing spreads outwards. And towns, it starts from some shack, a trader's shack by a river, then another settler moves and builds another shack next to it because people like to stay close and to share things and stuff and to collaborate. And then eventually a whole town grows. And this is used to model town growth. Now, we can also use this to model how we develop higher order conditioning from primary unconditioned rewards. So back to the emotion centers again. You're born with basic drives. You know nothing about the world. You have basic drives, the feeling of fat in your mouth, orgasm, nice sense of touch. But you kind of backward chain complexity back from that. So as a baby, you know very little of the world, but you kind of learn your mother's nipple. You learn a kind of sensation of food in your mouth. Then you kind of learn through association that food comes from a spoon, it comes from a little jar, it comes from a nipple, or it comes from the cupboard. You chain these associations, and you go through life, and you basically chain from basic primary rewards a whole constellation of beliefs around your basic desires and your basic fears. So what I'm saying is, diffusion limited aggregates are actually a model of how you form your knowledge webs. So each of these different colours might represent a basic drive. I mean, blue might be sex, you know, because you think a lot about sex and how to get it. And, or that might be football in some people's brains, and that might be sex. I mean, you know, so each of these might represent a different drive, and you grow back from those basic drives coded by your emotion centres, hypothalamus, amygdala, and orbital frontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex. You basically, from that, you grow out this knowledge web that fits into your kind of brain, your mind space. Now, the interesting thing is that, okay, everything I reason for this representation of my mind growing back from my emotion centers, this kind of a tree of knowledge growing in my mind space, representing my universe, my inner world of all the things I learn, all the things I like, all the things I fear. Okay, is completely is fractal with a neuron. So basically, these are neurons. Okay. The thing is, everything I reason about a neuron, I can also reason about my diffusion limited aggregate representation of my brain. So in the same way, behaviors are reinforced by my emotion centers at the center where it begins. And you know, the orgasm sends a back spike of reward to reinforce all those behaviors that led to that orgasm. The needle in the arm, the kind of cigarette feels, you know, reward, you know, feeling of satisfaction. Chains rewards those behaviors that lead up to that satisfaction in a complex way. In the same way, a neuron will fire, and then a backspike is sent to all the synapses which made it fire. And then literally, over many days, literally proteins are shuttled from the cell body back to these synapses to actually consolidate them. So in the same way, everything I reason for this kind of structure of my knowledge web, I can also completely reason for my for a neuron.